Hey class, welcome to week 3 on social judgment and beliefs. This is a very interesting week as we talk more about your place in society, dives a little bit deeper, because in week 2 we talked about, you learned about too, how the self plays a role in society, the self concepts. This takes a little bit more dive into where does your beliefs and judgments come from. So we'll go over some of these concepts here in this presentation. So constructing social perceptions, where do we get them from? Well, we basically do it by judging events. So there's like a little step-by-step process. Usually goes by you judge the event based off of your perception of the events and your personal assumptions. So you look at the event and you perceive it based off your internal knowledge, your thought processes, your experiences, your own self-knowledge of it. A lot of times the self-knowledge isn't actually accurate information. Sometimes it is. As we go through the concepts this week, you're going to see that some of them are not from very positive or accurate assumptions based on our knowledge. But we use those perceptions to explain the event of the situation, of why it happened or what's going on. And then of course we'll go over some examples too as well as we go through this. And then we have an expected outcome. We even may help bring out the outcome too based off our perceptions. You'll see that later on with like self-fulfilling prophecy and some other concepts that we'll learn this week. So how do we develop these thought processes? Very, very simple way. There's usually 2 different ways of thinking about it. The 2-brain system is what it's called. And part of the first system, there's system 1 and system 2, and you'll see this in the book, but you also probably see it on the test, in the exam, and you also see it in the study guide. But system 1 is your automatic responses out of awareness. Like it becomes your part of your intuition or gut feeling. So sometimes it's an emotional reaction. So when you see something, you automatically respond to it. Like maybe you see a scary movie, you start sweating, you panic, that kind of thing. When it comes to how you perceive something, like when you first visually see a person that looks a certain way, like you see them wearing a tie and a shirt, a gentleman wearing a tie and a shirt, and they're walking by a church building, you probably automatically think, oh, they got to be a member of that church. Or a guy in a business suit, oh, you automatically believe this person's probably like a CEO and maybe they're just going for a job interview. So you're not sure exactly the facts necessarily. It's just an automatic response, okay? System 2 is more conscious effort. So it's controlled responses. So you actually kind of look at something, you perceive it, you process it, and you actually make an actual, maybe a guess, but more of a careful thought analysis of something that you're witnessing or something that you're seeing. You're not passing judgment. It's not an automatic response. You're kind of looking at something or someone and you're analyzing it, you're giving it more of a conscious effort. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're accurate. That doesn't necessarily mean you're right on the situation. You're just more careful about where and what you're doing. Where do these thought processes come? Priming is the word that in the concept you want to learn and kind of understand mentally yourself. Priming is basically what it is it's when you're previously exposed stimulus that influence the reaction or response to a related stimulus. So, maybe you have experiences like, walking into a restaurant that's, like a Denny's and getting bad service. So when you see somebody wearing a Denny's uniform somewhere out in public, that's like maybe at the mall or something, or at school, the first thought that comes to mind is bad company. That person must be rude as well. So you're priming. You're using past experiences or past thought processes to pretty much stereotype and to generalize. So that's what priming kind of is using those experiences for it. Typically, priming involves words or images, like I said. So if you saw the Denny's or you see some kind of word that triggers some kind of response, you know, like if you're watching TV and you see the word, you know, McDonald's come across the screen, you might think, ugh, had a bad experience there, food's nasty. Or you could think, wow, I could really go for, you know, a Big Mac. Images as well, like if you see some image on television, you're probably prone to have already thoughts ingrained on you in your mind later on as you see it in public or anywhere else. These priming words and images influence our perception. Like I said, you know, this is where we could generalize and actually use these words and images to base our perceptions off of and our assumptions. It can affect emotional or behavioral responses. So if you had like a bad experience somewhere or with someone and you see somebody that looks like them, you could probably start panicking or sweating, you know, or you could end up crying. Like if you're watching a movie and you had an experience with a nightmare and you obviously see a scene in the movie that triggers that response, you know, you've had some kind of image with that. Words the same way. There's certain words you could see and read and it can elicit some kind of emotional response or some kind of behavior. Basic simple study was done by Dutch students. This one's in the books. If you want to read more about it, you can. The reason why I pull some of the examples from the book, so you can go back and read through them. But basically, a study done by Holland, Hendricks, and Arts in 2005. They actually had a room full of all-purpose cleaner scent in the room, so that's what they smelled. So when they were given a questionnaire on what words they remember that come to mind as they're sitting in a room, a lot of cleaning related words came to mind. So you see the environment impacts what you're doing and what you're thinking, and just by words. So the scent helped prime the words of cleaning, help them recall those words. There's also embodied cognition. So there's also like not just words and images, but like people dancing, playing softball, facial recognition. Those are all part of priming. So it's not just images and words. Like I said before, if you see somebody from Denny's who, when you had a bad experience at a restaurant, if you don't know what Denny's is, sorry, I don't know if Utah has those. They have those here. Denny's is a restaurant. You can say McDonald's or whatever. You can see dancing and you know what they're doing. As you see people dancing and you know, on television or skating or playing basketball, softball, whatever, you kind of know the differences between those things based off of your experiences from your personal or previous knowledge. Heuristics. So heuristics is something that's also on the exam. It's mental shortcuts to help people make sense of the world so that judgments and decisions are made quicker and proficient. So this is kind of like ties into priming, right? So, you know, humans want to dumb things down to simplify the world. Now, I don't mean to be offensive, but even I do it. We want things simplified. We want to be able to point the finger at somebody, pass blame, have some kind of where there's some kind of responsibility placed on somebody, or we just want to make sense of the world based off of just knowing things off the top of our head. Okay, so we do that by making these mental shortcuts. We do that with people's political views, ethnicity, background, even just academic things. You know, just kind of shortcutting our thoughts, making the assumption that we can make a quicker decision based off of our previous judgments. There's two different kinds of heuristics you'll see on the actual test and also throughout this week. One's representative heuristics. You're placing things in categories. You know, Are they closely related? So like I said, you see a guy wearing a business suit and tie, you might think they're a business owner or a lawyer. That thought might come to mind because of all the experiences you've had of people who wear a suit might be a business owner, a CEO, or somebody who's higher up in sales or something. We relate things closely together from our previous experiences and knowledge. So are they representative of the group that we previously knew about or know about? The other one is called availability heuristics. That's based on our memory storage. So that doesn't necessarily mean lumping things in a group. It's just we use our available memory to base our make decisions and judgments. You know, like one example is plane crash versus car crashes. So, you know, we hear that, you know, planes are safer to travel and car crashes are, you know, are more common, but yet some people still base getting on a plane, they get more nervous getting on a plane than getting in a car. So based from our memory and from what we're thinking about violent plane crashes versus how more common car crashes are. So we're using our previous memory, our previous memory storage to make that judgment. There's some errors in our thought processes, and you'll see this week in this book. Some of these errors are pretty common, and you know what they are. You've seen these before. A lot of them are pretty common. So it's not like something I'm letting you know something that's new. Some of these concepts will be new. Overconfidence is definitely one. Your self-confidence is not part of reality. Good example is great sports teams losing. I've seen so many top teams go in thinking they don't have to play as hard, and then they get upset. I see that in fights. I see that in basketball, football, all over. We see that even in the world of academics, walking into a test thinking, you know what, I didn't need to study last night. I know the content, and then not getting a good grade. So our confidence ventures over into overconfident. Confirmation bias is basically where you're seeking to prove and not disprove. So you're basically trying to confirm, you're confirming that you're siding with things that confirm your belief versus looking at some new information that could actually correct your previous belief, but you don't care to because you don't want to be wrong. A lot of this happens on political views. You see one side, the book actually goes over how when gas prices goes up, the right side of politics says the reason why gas price go up is because we have a liberal president. A liberal would say we have a conservative president, that's why gas prices go up. When in reality, when that does happen and when that is stated, then what happens is they're both actually, without realizing, admitting that they're ignoring the fact that if they're being blamed for it, they can pass the blame on to the other, if that makes sense. So you can also see that just in regular debate, you're dismissive of academic views or even social life views. If new information comes, but it counteracts what your previous belief is, you dismiss it. Okay, that's basically what confirmation bias is. Other mental errors, you got counterfactual thinking. What could have been, you're countering to the facts. So you kind of look at an event and you say, you know what, I know I didn't pass that test, but if I would have just studied more. So you kind of look back in hindsight on what could have made the mistake, when all in reality, that may not be the case. Maybe you studied really well for the exam, you just didn't pass. Or you could look back and say, maybe I shouldn't have gone out 2 nights ago. That probably wasn't it. So a lot of us like to think back and counteract what we're thinking or what we're doing in the past. The example, had I practiced more, we would have won. So we look back at the loss, you know, if I would have made these 2 shots, we would have won. Now, there's a lot of things that could have happened in the course of that event that could have helped with winning or with being successful. Illusory correlation is perception that there is a relationship between two variables. Basically, I put this one as the example of vacation experience in New York. You're thinking that the relationships of two variables exist together. Like if you go on vacation to New York and you see rude people there, but really not, they're rude, they're just straightforward, they're just fast, and you feel like they're being rude to you. And then you come home for vacation and then you see people that are from New York, you automatically think they're going to be rude. And that's definitely not the case. Same thing with the restaurant example. You think somebody who's wearing the McDonald's or Denny's outfit is going to be rude, when in reality, there's no correlation at all. We do that all the time with groups. And, you know, as we see in general conference, I think it was like last time or the time before, you know, general authorities are talking about not grouping things into, not looking at people in groups, looking at them as an individual and basing it off that. Other mental errors, belief perseverance. You're maintaining belief despite new evidence. That's kind of like counterfactual evidence or counterfactual theory. You're maintaining it. So, for instance, one of the examples I gave is all psychology teachers are not weird. So you find that the psychology teachers are weird, but they're actually not. You find new information. You see somebody, a teacher that is actually not odd, maybe like myself, and it kind of goes up against your beliefs. So you're like, you know what? I'm just going to maintain that psychology teachers are all weird, despite having one or two teachers who are not weird at all. Misinformation effect. New information is incorporated as a new memory. So you see that with eyewitness testimony. Loftus is mentioned in the book, which is pretty amazing because I believe it's in personality psychology, I see a lot of eyewitness information and research. And Loftus is an author that's actually studied a lot. And so if you ever get a chance to go onto the university library and just type in eyewitness and the researcher Loftus comes up, I would read it because it's really good information. Basically, it's like when somebody witnesses a crime, how somebody can take information and incorporate it as new memory, when actually in reality it's not. And it's proven that eyewitness testimony is not very reliable in court because of this misinformation effect. We kind of assumed that the event took place while we're watching it. That's why when you have 15 people looking at the same car accident or some kind of crime, there's probably 15 different interpretations of it that are way off from one another. So that's what misinformation effect is. We just got a couple of more, so just bear with me. Self-fulfilling prophecy is actually a very common one. You probably already heard of this one before. It's when our ideas lead us to act in ways that produce their apparent confirmation. So for instance, like you go in for a job interview and you're feeling very confident, you're probably gonna have the self-fulfilling prophecy that you're gonna get the job. And the opposite also matters. And matter of fact, I think I sense or hear more of the self-fulfilling prophecy towards the negative side, where somebody comes in and does a job interview and is like afterwards, oh man, I bombed it, there's no way I'm gonna get the job. So later on they don't get the job and they realize, you know, that it confirmed their original idea. I actually had the opposite one time about 15, 16 years ago. I got hired on at a job, my first job at a university. I thought I bombed it. I thought I wasn't going to get it. And I ended up getting the job and then moving over to a different position right away. So we're not always right when we predict. Finally, I believe this is the last one, behavior confirmation. Erroneous beliefs that the social world can induce others to confirm those beliefs. So like Snyder in 1994, there's a study on men speaking to attractive, unattractive women. They believe that as they're listening to the women speak, they can tell and they can confirm the attractiveness of the woman. If the woman's soft-spoken and sounds very like sweet and calm, they can consider that woman as an attractive woman over the phone versus someone who's not, they would say is unattractive. And a matter of fact, that's kind of an erroneous belief because there's no way to really tell just based off someone's tone of voice over the phone. So you're confirming that the behavior of the other person is based off of some kind of belief that you have of the social world, which doesn't confirm it at all. Okay. And that's it. I really don't have any much more. That there's a lot on this test. That there's more on the exam other than this stuff. And I hope this helps clear up some stuff. Good luck this weekend. I hope everybody has a good week. If you have any questions, please let me know.